Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Amma ba'da. Habati fillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayyakum Allah jami'an. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala bless us all with ikhlas, with the bad ala sunnah to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala forgive us of our many sins. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala guide us and preserve us and rectify our condition and affairs. And may Allah tabarak wa ta'ala bless and preserve all of our brothers and sisters who struggle with health issues and wealth issues, as well as war and famine and all of the difficulties of this dunya. And may Allah Azza wa Jal cure our brother Ismail Beaumont in entirety. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure him, protect him, preserve him, and bless him to continue to be a source of good for the Muslims. Ahabati fillah, we left off last in our study of this very beneficial treatise, which is advice to the youth of Ahl Sunnah, which is absolutely exactly that. It's advice to especially the youth, the shabab, and the talabat al-ilm, more specifically, to not allow fitna and discord threaten their unity based on the book and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning their unity is based upon the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and their discord and disharmony is basically based upon hizbiyah more often than not. And so this is a beautiful treatise, and we left off in the treatise, we were talking about the 6th point, and the Sheikh was referring to hajr, of boycotting, and some of the dawabit, some of the principles regarding boycotting, and if they are not done properly, that they can be a source of harm. They can be cause greater harm than good. And if they are done properly, they can be a source of good, and they can help rectify people or protect the community from the harm of someone who is innovating in the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, continue on, the Sheikh said the 6th point. And I think we will first get rid of this fan. The Sheikh said the 6th point. He says, it is appropriate for the one considering the use of hajr, meaning boycotting, to take into consideration the legislative guidelines the Imams of Ahl Sunnah have mentioned. These guidelines, after careful examination, will clarify in a precise manner who is to be boycotted and who is not. So very important that the Sheikh here, and this is one of the things that I love about Sheikh Ibrahim Raheli, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, and one of the things that I learned from him is that, he's really cautious and he always tries to point you back to the dawabit, the criterion with regards to these issues. Not that these issues are based upon our desires, nor are these issues based upon just what Sheikh so-and-so said. So what you find from some of the people of Hizbiyah is that they will make, even if they are making ta'zeem or praising and glorifying or exalting a scholar from Ahl Sunnah, they still implement Hizbiyah because they only refer to him, meaning all their affairs go back to one scholar. All of their affairs, if Sheikh so-and-so says it, it must be true. It's unquestioned blind following, and this is what is Hizbiyah, and this is what is dangerous. And so what I'm saying here, the Sheikh is mentioning very importantly, he says, after careful examination, we'll clarify in a precise manner who is to be boycotted and who is not. And he said guidelines. And he said guidelines of who? Guidelines of the Imma, the Imams of Ahl Sunnah. Not the people of bid'ah and desires, and not one scholar and not one scholar's opinion. But these are dawabit, these are criterion and principles that the scholars of the Sunnah throughout history have written about in their books. And we see from the narrations of the Salaf that these have been, that there's been usul and criterion that have been deduced and taken from the Imams of the Sunnah. And that is very important, that we want to try to encourage one another to be on qawa'id and principles and usul, not upon our desires and our opinions and just the opinion of this scholar or that scholar, or even if it's this and that scholar. But we want to be on dawabit. We want to be on principles that are derived from the minhaj of the Salaf. So he says the first of those guidelines. He says first, pertaining to the hajr. The hajr. So he said that the first guideline is pertaining to the one who is applying the boycotting, because it just depends on, when you're looking at these issues, it depends on who you're talking about as far as when you're looking at the harms and the benefits and when you're trying to apply the rules of hajr. So he said pertaining to the hajr, meaning the one applying the boycott, it is recommended for him to be firm, effective, to the degree that his boycott leads to the reprimand of he who is in opposition. But if he is weak and ineffective, then he will not achieve the recommended objective of boycotting him, even if it is done with the correct intention. So just so we understand this, because I know sometimes it just sounds like words. So for example, if you were to, here's an excellent example. My position regarding Yasir Qadhi is well known. If I were to meet Yasir Qadhi, see him in Starbucks, whatever, see him in a masjid, would it be beneficial that I make hajr of him, being more or less, probably in his eyes and others, a nobody, meaning that I'm not famous, I'm not known like that. There will be very little effect upon a person like him because he's well known around the world. Okay, so then you would look at, is this an effective hajr? Would it be effective for me to see this man and not give him salams? Or would it be more effective that I say, yes, salam alaikum, and I greet him, and perhaps there's an opportunity to share with him issues that I have with his mistakes and his differences in i'tiqad and differences in minhaj and methodology from Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. So this is what this has to do with the hajr. That would be the person that would be mean in that situation if I were to be the hajr. So if I were to make hajr from a person like that, a person who has a lot of status with a lot of people, that may have very little, if no effect. So that is one of the things that must be considered when making hajr. And that's what the Sheikh is saying here. So he says, however, if the boycott is employed in light of benefiting the hajr himself, and that he fears that sitting or associating with this individual will affect his deen in this case, he has the right to boycott. Okay, so that's another point within this issue. And that is, if I were fearful that by sitting and being in Starbucks and having a cup of coffee with Yasser Qadi, I'm just giving an example. If I felt that that was going to be harmful for my religion, meaning that Yasser Qadi, he's very articulate, he may be able to influence me with some of his ideas. If I were fearful of that, then it would also be legislated to make Hajr of him in order to protect my religion, being the Hajr, the one who is implementing Hajr of someone. I hope that's clear. I think it was explained sufficiently. Then the Sheikh, he says, respectively boycotting is legislated for the benefit of the one applying it, to protect you and your religion. He has the right to boycott anyone whom he feels accompanying them or associating with them will be detrimental to his religion. It is also legislated for the benefit of the one being boycotted if it will bring about his reformation and rectification. So here, with regards to the one making Hajr of someone, the Sheikh is mentioning, it comes from two ways, as we just mentioned. One, to protect the person themselves from the harms of this individual. Secondly, which also it makes it legislated to make Hajr, is if that person is going to be a harm, or if this person is going to return back from their deviance due to you making Hajr of them, then in those cases, it is legislated. It is a good thing to make Hajr. If you're fearful of your deen by giving salams and being around this person, or if you think that you will have a positive impact or influence on that individual, then it's mashru'. This is a good thing if you make Hajr in those circumstances. Boycotting is also legislated for the benefit of the ummah, in that they abandon some of those who oppose the Quran, the Sunnah, and the methodology of the pious predecessors in order to avoid actions similar to theirs, and there are textual evidences to substantiate every point mentioned here. So he's saying that it's also, boycotting is also legislated for the benefit of the ummah. So how would this play out? Let's look at that same scenario. So say if a person, they were invited to go sit with Yasser Qadi, to go to a conference or something. This is an example. And then they are fearful that their name will be associated with Yasser Qadi, and that it will seem as if they are approving Yasser Qadi, and that this will confuse the youth. Okay? So in that case, also it can be mashru', legislated to make Hajr. Okay? And again, even that scenario is not black and white, because maybe those are some of the harms of that, but maybe there's a greater benefit in that person has a chance to reach many, many, many more people who normally wouldn't listen to them. So again, all of those things have to be weighed, and that type of fiqh is usually reserved for the ulama and the well-grounded students of knowledge, and people can ask, for example, a da'i or someone who may not be necessarily a talib al-ilm or a strong student of knowledge or what have you, then they can ask those people who they trust, who have more knowledge, to see, what do you think? Do you think this is a good thing or not? And this is one of the things I asked Sheikh Suleiman Raheli once, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, about this very issue. Actually, I asked about 7 of the scholars, and I recorded it. And I'm not going to reduce, I know people want to hear these recordings, but some of them were kind of private conversations, but I recorded it, so I knew exactly what he said. And that's just the kind of guy I am. I like that. I like to record, I when I used to sit with the ulama and ask questions, I would like to record, because I knew I would use it later, either to write in writing books or, producing translations of fatwa or what have you. Anyway, so I asked this to several different mashayikh. I asked Sheikh Salih Surhaimi, I asked Sheikh Ibrahim Raheli. I tried to ask Sheikh Ubaid, but I remember he was sick that time when I tried to approach about questions, and so they rushed him to his house. He had the flu or something. It was after a lecture he gave or something, or it was a khutbah, I can't remember. And I asked Sheikh Abdullah Bilan, I asked Sheikh Sa'id bin Halal and different mashayikh. Anyhow, what I remember Sheikh Suleiman Raheli, he said that one thing that's very important with regards to this issue, because some of the mashayikh have a very black and white view, will say, no, do not give a conference with an innovator, or do not go to the masajid of Ahl Bid'ah, or things like this. Some of the scholars have a very black and white. But all of the scholars that I asked, all of them had more delivered the nuances and said, hey, there's details with that. And what Sheikh Suleiman Raheli, sorry to lengthen this, but he said that basically that when you are doing that, if you were to go give dawah in a masjid of Ahl Bid'ah, or, like a conference with some people who are known innovators, in the religion, he said that you should, with your local Salafi brothers, you should make it known that what you are doing, so that way they don't become confused, and also so that it's kind of, I don't know if he was saying that it was like seeking their approval, but more or less just so they know that you are here and you think that there's a greater benefit. So it's kind of making shura. So that way the people don't just say, oh, you went to a masjid of Ahl Bid'ah, we saw you in the UK and you sat with this one or you sat with this one, and what's your excuse, bro? But instead, you've talked to your brothers in order to keep from discord from your brothers. So you can see the hikmah. I love the ulama, really. Even now that I reflect on that, and I'm just almost learning something new, because the sheikh was really talking about keeping the harmony between Ahl Sunnah, because sometimes, look at what happened, and I'm going to just be open, even though I didn't follow up the issue a lot, but when Muhammad Munir, Mufti Munir, may Allah preserve him, when he went to the UK, I think the last time, and then there was a lot of controversy, because I guess he maybe went and he was hosted by some people who are not Salafi or something like this. I even got people, some du'at, who contacted me about it and said, did you see what he did? Did you hear? And I said, no, I didn't listen. I really don't follow up on these things that much. And so it was very interesting how that all unfolded. But perhaps what might have been better for him, even though he's a grown man, he can do, but just for the sake of the dawah and the harmony, perhaps it might have been better that he had shared with his other brothers what he was doing, that he was going to a masjid, or he was being hosted by some people, and that he should, let his brothers on the dawah, let them know what's going on. And sometimes that keeps an additional harmony. Ahabati fillah, I'm going to go for 10 minutes because I have to deal with something for about 10 minutes. I will be back in 10 minutes. So give me the 10 minutes. So we're going to end there, and then we're going to continue on fresh, and I'll have my coffee, and we're going to go hard in the paint if you want to, if you find benefit in it. May Allah bless us and you, and keep your questions. We'll deal with all of this in 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes, and I'll be back. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.